there. I was asked a few times about the library books that I had made on my Elven library diorama, so I thought I would do a tutorial so people could see how I made them. These ones are a little bit fancier than the ones on the diorama, which I had just placed into a recess on the wall. I made cases for these ones and they look really quite nice. I like them a lot and I'm sure I'll use them in the future on something. So I hope you find this tutorial useful and I hope you enjoy the video. I cut some XPS insulation foam to a size that I wanted and sanded it very well, and cut top and bottom and sanded them really well also. I used a Christmas gift tag just to cut a shape that I thought was nice. It was an attractive shape and I didn't have to make any measurements. I just used it as a template. And I flipped it over for the other side just to keep the same dimensions on both bookcases. I just cut this out with a knife because it's so basic. And that's your front of the case, and then on the back where the books will be drawn. And then you got your top and bottom, and that's that easy. I just drew the shelves in using a ruler on one, so I once again wouldn't have to make measurements, and using one of those wide popsicle sticks, like a craft stick, for the others, so I'll have smaller books on the other one. And I just draw each shelf top to bottom, minimal effort with everything that I make. Seems to work out somehow, I don't know how sometimes. To draw in the books, I just make sure I line up the ruler either on the outer edge or the line that I've created down the centre, which I know is straight, I hope is straight, and then I just rule straight down on one side, and then all the books from there will be all in line. As long as the lines you start with are perfectly vertical, it'll all fall into place and everything will be nice and even. And then I just deepen the lines that I make for the shelves. I'm almost cutting at this point instead of just scoring and marking, because I really want to get depth into the foam now. The pencil is an excellent tool for doing this. It gives a slight rounded edge to everything when you cut with it. The same with the books. Once I've drawn them all up, I really want to start deepening all the grooves. You really want it to stand out. And then I just use a coffee stirrer. You don't have to mark these, it's kind of an example, but it's where you want to start punching rectangular and square holes. You find that if you do this quickly, you'll get a much sharper edge and a squarer shape. I think it breaks the surface tension of the foam if you just quickly pop it through instead of pushing slowly. If you can't get a nice square shape the first go, just use the end of the tool you punched it with and just move it back and forth and side to side and just get those edges nice and square. Just sort of pushes everything back into shape. It works quite well. They've come out nice and square. It's really quick stuff, this. To make patterns in the foam, I just use the end of things like the coffee stirrers or toothpicks, both ends, and you just make impressions everywhere or piercing them. Just sort of random patterns, symmetrical patterns. You could do letters, elven gibberish, whatever you like, whatever sort of fills the blank void of the books and suits what you would like to create. I like to score down with a coffee stirrer. I sliced again in half, so it's really nice and thin, but it makes a really nice looking binder on the book. just put all sorts of symbols and things all over these. Some of them are a lot deeper than others, and some you might not see much at all when it's done. But every one of them is unique, and that's a good thing with this. This pattern I created with a ring, like this cheap little ring, and I just drew off the line where I had actually drawn too far, so I thought I'd correct it by making it into a pattern, and then just some little circles to balance it all out. I have no idea what this tool is. I'd love to know what it is, but I found it and I thought I would use it for making impressions in foam, and I'm glad because it's, even just for this project, it's been really, really good. I stuck it on a paintbrush and just used it like a wheel just to roll out a really good pattern. It's an interesting thing, that. I've also used it on the top and bottoms of the bookcase. I'm just going to draw a line down it. I'm just going to hopefully sort of give it a really nice shape. Just, I don't know, a little bit more fancy work, kind of gives it more of a realistic feel. I just kept running the pencil up and down this at an angle just to use it as a sculpting tool, and it shaped it really beautifully. It never ceases to amaze me how beautifully this foam picks up detail when you sculpt it with simple things like pencils. I created a piece down the centre of this because it dawned on me that you wouldn't get books out at that top angle there, so I thought I'd make it into doors that would open on the front. It looks nice too, so it's win-win. I've done a small amount of detailing on the other one. Very hard to see it without any stain on it, but it's there and down the centre. And now it's time to stain it with the water-based ink. To get into all the little holes that I'd created, I needed to use a thin paintbrush, almost like an eyedropper, just to get that ink in there. And it just comes out already looking like wood. I am really in love with this kind of just ink on foam. I don't know why it has this fantastic effect, but it sits in recesses and it just does this magic on its own. I just love it. There's just no effort, maximum results. I'm so tempted to leave it this way and not paint them at all. Well, the books, yes, but the cases, no. They look so good. To paint these, I'm just going to use acrylic paint and a little bit of water just to thin it out, just so I can get it to run nice and smoothly. I don't want it to be too thin because it will absorb into the foam, because the ink doesn't provide any kind of priming to the foam at all, so it'll go straight into it. And I just want to use some really nice sort of, not neutral colours, but they're kind of earthy and natural, and they won't stand out too much, just in case I want to use these on a project in the future and I have no idea what that might be yet. I've also been finding that these particular colours not only work well with the brown beneath it, but with the foam as well, the way it absorbs into it. The paint's gone into the little holes that I've made, so just use the same tool that you created the markings with to remove the paint out of them if it goes in there. This is, I think, Viridian, this one. It's not the same one I used on the library books. It comes off a little bit more blue as it dries, but I like it. And just keep the tip of your brush nice and flat so it'll run across and not go into your patterns too much. This one, that looks great the way it's going down like that. It's one of those aesthetic things that you could sit there and watch for ages. You can see all the little colours and details that I've put into it. just using the toothpicks again. I did almost all of the markings with the toothpicks. Just the tiniest amount on the end, and then just pierce a really small hole. Make a really, really tiny circle. I just use the flat end of the toothpick, and when you apply it, you just twist it and at the right amount of pressure, and it'll just make a really nice circle, or sort of just like a disc. Depends on how hard you push with it. These are really intricate little details that you would be struggling to get with a brush. It makes a project like this much, much quicker to create. Use the toothpick to draw lines on wet paint, make markings. Anything you can come up with, it all seems to work really well. And I've put it back together and it looks really good. I'm really pleased with these. I love the way they look. They were quite quick and easy to make, especially with doing things like, stamping and that sort of thing. And they look like wood, which is really interesting. Well, I hope you found this tutorial useful, and I will see you next time.